Welcome back in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Xander Krause. Give me a follow on X at Real Xander. I always try and connect with all the great people of JAKIB Nation, and that's John McMullen, the #1 Eagles beat reporter in town. Give him a follow at JF McMullen. He shares up pictures and reports and everything on his X account, so stay plugged in with him over there on X as well, if you're over there. And if you're not subscribed to the channel and you're a watcher, about 45% of our viewers, John, are watchers but not subscribers.
Got to subscribe to win the
No, you don't even have to subscribe to win. That's member. That's $5 a month. Subscribe is free. Subscribe doesn't cost you a dime. So hit that subscribe button for us, and we appreciate all you guys being here. Hit that like button on the show today. John, let's get to a couple of super chats from the great people of JAKIB Nation. JT Philly says, how do you feel Jalen will look going into the playoffs, missing 3 consecutive weeks? He didn't play preseason and came out with 2 ints, 2 fumbles against Green Bay in week 1, and they were some pretty ugly interceptions, JT Philly, if you remember those. John, I think it's a good question. I think it's a fair question. It's something I've been asking you. What do you say to JT Philly here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be some rust early in games, but the Eagles haven't been a quick starting team in general. They have improved that down the stretch a little bit, but for most of the year with Jalen, they've been a slow starting team, then they finish strongly. I think they are what they are at this point. They're going to, and a lot of Philadelphia likes that. They're going to lean on the running game. And they're going to try to play good defense and try to win that way. I think they are what they are at this point, and we're going to see if they can finish it off playing that way. They're not going to change at this late stage, especially when the quarterback hasn't been healthy over the past couple of weeks. And, you know, it's going to be it's going to be very exciting if they do win, I think, for Eagles fans, because they like that. Most of them like that brand of football.
Am I wrong in saying that, to me, Jalen is more of a rhythm player, and that's why I worry about this? Like, some people have like this crazy arm talent where you're just like, yeah, they're going to make those throws no matter what. They're just gifted with that type of arm talent. I don't see that as much for Jalen. I see him as like a rhythm player who thrives once he gets going, once he gets comfortable, once he, finds his groove in an offense. And that's kind of why I have not fears, but I'm definitely looking out for it. If Jalen starts super slow in that game or is rusty or looks sluggish or whatever, is inaccurate, anything.
Well, I think all quarterbacks are rhythm players. That's why they all talk about rhythm. And that's one of my criticisms of Kellen Moore. I would do I don't want to say better, but I would put more of a focus on getting him in a rhythm earlier. Like I always say, it seems like the Eagles always get going when they play tempo because he gets into a rhythm. But that's everybody, Was watching after the Eagles game last week, was watching Minnesota Green Bay. And then, Minnesota goes tempo, and there's Sam Darnold in a rhythm. Right. Late in the game, when Green Bay's coming back, they go tempo, and Jordan Love gets in a rhythm. It's literally every quarterback from Tom Brady on down.
Yeah.
And Tom talks about it all the time. He talks
Why
about
would it not be a concern then with Jalen right now?
Well, it is. I think that's where the coaching staff has to do a better job early in games to get him in that rhythm. And if that means coming out in tempo, come out in tempo. Who cares? But yeah, I don't think they've done a good job of that this season overall.
No, I agree with that for sure. Let's keep rolling here. Jason 18. What's up, Jason? Appreciate you, brother. He says, isn't it obvious the Eagles are using the concussion to keep him out of the game, that the Eagles don't take flack from the media? They would if healthy. I don't know if they would.
I don't know. Who the hell is
everybody else, 18? What the fuck?
I mean, you can't. I can't speak for everybody in the media. That's one of my pet peeves, that they lump us all together. I mean, the vast majority of us who are there every day will not be giving the Eagles shit for sitting Jalen Hurts. I mean, we all think it's common sense for the most part. So I disagree with that. I can't speak to talk show host and.
Well, there are a lot of former players, John, that disagree.
The guys, Chris Canny evidently always criticized.
Even an Eagles legend, a guy like Seth Joyner, who's been making the rounds this week. And he talks all the time.
I love Seth, but come on, we know Seth by this point. Seth's ultra old school. I mean, I'm
not trying to say one is right or wrong. I'm just adding the context in that there's other people out there that have differing opinion on it.
Well, yeah, there's always going to be people. Always. I'm saying, but for the guys who are there every day, I mean, I don't see that coming from them. I'll say that.
It is a rare opportunity, though, John. I will say that. I don't disagree with the resting, but it's a rare. I mean, you're talking about a guy that has the chance to. I mean, there's great NFL players. There's NFL players who are gifted by God. Then there's great NFL players who are a little bit more gifted by God. And then there's the elite of the elite of the elite in the history of the game. And Saquon has a chance to surpass them on a record. I think it's pretty powerful, but I get it. I do get it. I really see both sides of this. I said yesterday, I'm riding the fence on this issue because if they get bounced, I'm probably going to say, we should have went for the record. And if they go to the Super Bowl, I'm going to say, hey, look.
And the hypocrisy part is, let's be honest, if they went for the record in a meaningless game and he did get injured, and it doesn't even have to be Saquon, those same people would be burying this team. So I don't take it seriously. I don't take it seriously. I don't take anybody seriously who can't be honest with themselves. And that could be whether it's just shtick or whether it's just a bullshit narrative to create.
Right, I don't disagree with that.
And anybody who's going to go, well, I want it all. All right, And again, I go back to the hypocrisy of I can't take it seriously that people pretend that this record was meaningful for them 3 weeks ago, a month ago. It's only become meaningful over the past few weeks because there's a chance that it could happen. Nobody knew it. And again, I'm using that facetiously. There's a couple hardcore fans here and there who knew Eric Dickerson, knew the number, but not many. And now it's pretend like it's Babe Ruth, like it's Hank Aaron beating Babe Ruth. It's just not. And Saquon said him, and Saquon's the guy. And obviously he wants to break the record. And he said it himself. He's like, yeah, Eric's got the record, but OJ had a better year. Barry had a better year, basically. Did it in 335 carries. He's already had a better year. So who gives a shit?
I think you're down. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think you're downplaying the record a little bit. I mean, it's 40 years standing, John. That's a long time, man.
Again, that's you're failing to go back to where you were in August.
No, the team element I agree with, but I do think I don't think there's a world that exists that Saquon won't regret this in the future. I think there's a 100% chance he regrets not going for it in the future.
If I had a crystal ball and I said Saquon was going to break the all-time rushing record back in August as we're getting ready for week 1, the vast majority of people say, what is the rushing record? So I'm not going to pretend it's Hank Aaron beating Babe Ruth. Other people can.
Because it hasn't been set in 40 years. Maybe that has something to do with it. But, I mean, like I said, Saquon will regret it. I mean, whether we win a Super Bowl or not, he will look back and say, dang, I was that close to being the top of the list on a list of the most elite players and most elite running backs to ever play football. I mean, many have.
Well, I don't know when Babe Ruth retired. I don't know when Hank, 1935, but everybody knew that damn number. Way up, right up until Hank Aaron beat it. Everybody knew that number. I'm not going to pretend it's that type of record because it's not. Other people can. Go ahead. Knock yourself out. Anybody wants to do it. But you're lying to yourselves. That's all I'm saying.
Let's keep rolling here. Lauren Crampsey checks in. Good morning, Lauren. Happy New Year to you. She says, Happy New Year, folks. We Eagles fans are the Goldilocks of football. Too cold, too hot, should be playing, should be resting. Porridge is never right. Jalen, regarding Jalen, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Are you talking about the protocol there? I guess you're talking about the protocol with that. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to at the end, but
I mean, I don't think from the Eagles' perspective it's too hot, too cold. That's from the outside. There's so much passion with fans covering this team, with fans following this team. Again, to me, from being inside that building over the past couple of days, from talking to people, this was not a difficult decision for the Eagles. It's not too hot, too cold. This is all outside. They're not inside. This was not a difficult decision for the Eagles. So,
Lauren, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Josh Herman says, Josh, appreciate you. John, who is playing, McKee or Pickett? Looks like McKee, right?
Yeah, Kenny's not even practicing. He's not. It's going to be Tanner McKee and Ian Book. It's your backup.
Yeah, Lauren did follow up. She said Jalen's protocol drama. Too many people deciding what to say to media and why. I probably agree with that.
Well, no, I mean that's not that. Why they're doing it the way they're doing it, I don't know. But yeah, it's not. It's got nothing to do with the media. I mean, it's easy. You're not allowed to talk about people in the concussion protocol. So I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not about fending us off. In fact, the opposite would be better for them, which is why I think it's strange the way they're handling it.
I would just prefer to get them back out of the protocol and then rest them. But I don't know. I guess there's a problem with that now, too. Jason A-Team again. Thank you, A-Team. Appreciate your support, my friend. He says, Ajomo was one of my players to watch before the season. I've watched him play all year. He runs around like a linebacker and is a very good pass rusher. I agree. And A-Team, I think he's given them some secure or some insurance if Milton Williams decides to walk this year. I think they might feel not great, but maybe comfortable with Ajomo stepping up and having a bigger role next year on the defensive line. John, what say you?
Yeah, I think Morrow's got a chance to be a really good player. And, there's going to be a lot of Milton Williams interest around the NFL. So how, quickly, it's one of those things where, hey, maybe we believe in Moro Ajomo to a point where you don't have to pay Milton Williams $13 million a year, whatever. I'm just throwing a number out there.
Is that what you think he's going to get? $13 million around there?
I mean, that's why I shouldn't have thrown out a number.
I don't know. I think it might be more than that.
I haven't even got it's a position teams generally pay for, so he's probably going to get overpaid in free agency. So if they believe that Moro Ajomo, can take that next step, that would make it easier not to get in that bidding war if you don't want to. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad. Same thing could happen with Zach Ballin at linebacker. If you believe in Jeremiah Trotter Jr., all depend. Everything in the NFL involves, it boils down to personnel evaluation. Is this guy going to be a really good player? And it's tough to make the right decisions all the time.
Absolutely. I think Milton Williams is going to get paid, though. Charles Menifee. What's up, Charles? I appreciate you, brother. He says Saquon winning Super Bowl MVP after foregoing an opportunity to break the record would be a bigger and more memorable story. I agree with that. Obviously, Super Bowl MVP. But Menifee, I still think he'll look back in the future and say, well, I wish I had the record, too, because I could have had it, But you're not wrong. I mean, that's what they're focused on, obviously. But
Saquon's focused on Terrell Davis now.
I like that being said.
Who was the all-time rushing record, which nobody knows about or cares about?
Like 24-70? What is it?
24 something. It's in the 24s. because he won the Super Bowl. And
I think he can pretty easily do that. We're gonna have, if you go to the Super Bowl, you got 4 playoff games.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's the one he's focused on. And actually, from a player standpoint, that should be more meaningful because playoff games are more important than regular season games, way more important. And Terrell Davis should be a bigger name than Eric Dickerson, but nobody cares because nobody looks at it that way.
Good stuff, Menifee. Thank you, brother. Dirty Air checks in and he says, how do we really feel about Dallas Goedert? Time to look at his replacement, ? Well, Dirty Air, in the immediate, I feel good about getting him back for the playoffs because he's a good player and we got him back. In the future, a long-term conversation, after off-season conversation, yeah, I'm ready to move on. John, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, he's very meaningful. I get, and the Eagles are probably going to look not necessarily move on, but to look about the heir apparent down the road. Yeah, exactly. Remember, they drafted Dallas Goedert when Zach Ertz was here, and Zach was younger than Dallas is now. So that's just in general. But I don't think people realize, on a team that Dallas has played 8 games because it'll say 9, but he got hurt. He got hurt on the 3rd play of the Cleveland game when he pulled his hamstring. So he didn't play that entire game. And I was just doing it. I'm going to do it real quick again. I don't think people understand how impactful he was being as a receiver on a team that wasn't even throwing the football. I mean, he's got 38 receptions and 441 yards in 8 games. If you project that out as a healthy season, that's 81 receptions and over 900 yards from a tight end. He's very impactful when he's on the field. And this is a team that is not a high volume passing team.
John, you always say you mute people who say he's made of glass. All right, and I'm fine.
I mute people who say anybody's made of glass.
Okay, but here's my question for how do I ask
but him specifically?
How do I ask you that question,
guys on the team? What?
And then if I can't say that, how do you expect me to ask you that question? Because I look at his career, he misses games every single year.
That's a relevant question. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with people saying that the insults, the glass, he's made of glass. Like, he's one of the toughest players on the team. Many of his injuries, the broken forearm most notably, are because he's being physical on the field and running people over. Which to the point he won, as I said, he won Kyle Brandt's Angry Run Award twice that year. And he admitted to me, I got to stop doing that because I'm just, hurting myself. And you got to live to play another day, so to speak. Injuries are injuries. Sometimes, to me, again, there's and football players will tell you this all the time. Are you injured or are you hurt? And if you're injured, you can't play. If you're hurt, you can play through it. You sprain your knee, you sprain your knee. You break your glenoid bone in your shoulder, you broke your glenoid bone in your shoulder.
He has had some weird injuries, man.
It's like luck is a thing, bad luck, good luck, whatever you want to call it. People don't like to say it. I've seen so many injury prone. Probably Jordan Hicks is a perfect example of this. When he was an Eagles player, great player when he was here, one of Chip Kelly's best players, best draft picks, and he always got hurt. Every year he got hurt. And everybody, Jordan Hicks is made of glass. Then he left here. He stayed healthy for, 5 consecutive seasons, played every game, every fucking game for 5 consecutive seasons. Sometimes the worm turns.
Yeah, right. I get it. I get what you're saying.
Now there are guys who don't bite through injuries that, other people would. That's not Dallas. Dallas is not the guy who's tapping out. There's 2 stories I always tell. And this is, again, where teams should be more honest. There's a year the Eagles said Darren Sproles was out with a hamstring injury. And then he was out for 2 weeks, and he was out for 4 weeks, and he was out for 6 weeks, and he was out
Yeah.
for 8 weeks. And I and everybody's ripping Darren Sproles. How can he not be back from a hamstring injury? How can he not be back from a hamstring? And anybody who knows Darren Sproles knows that dude is, I always joke, people call him small. He's not small, he's short. He was short. He was the pound for pound, he's the most powerful player on the Eagles. He benched 450.
Yeah.
It's just an immensely powerful person, immensely tough player. And the Eagles did all this. And then it came out, Bonnie comes back after 9 weeks or so, whatever it was. He had a torn hamstring. He didn't have a strain. He had a torn hamstring. And then give out the information, and everybody's out there ripping him. And then Nate Gary's a player everybody hated, and the coaching staff loved. And they'd hear Jim Schwartz talk about him. They'd hear Ken Plagiol, the linebackers coach at the time, and they loved Nate Gary. And nobody could figure out because he's getting beat. Wasn't a great player, let's be honest. He's getting beat in coverage all the time. But the coaching staff loved him. And the reason they loved him, he played a whole season with a sports hernia where everybody else would have went down the street to the Navy Yard to Dr. Brad, like to get it. Dr. Myers, William Myers is the guy, to get it fixed and be out for the season. But the Eagles didn't have any linebackers, and they needed him to play. And he played through it, immense pain the entire time. So the coaching staff had tremendous respect for him. So that's why I just mute people who, it's ignorant. Let's be honest. I mean, and these are football players. These guys take some freaking punishment, and you got some guy on his couch saying they're made of glass. I mean, yeah, I mute those people. If the average person took one hit on a football field, they would get up crying and take their ball and go home. So that's why I don't like that.
That's fair. Kenny Sprague checks in. He says, thoughts on all CFP teams with the bye losing. I think having a month off facing a fresh team was an issue. Every team started off slow. Yeah, I mean, Kenny, it was. I'm a big college football fan. I like watching college football, but it was interesting. Oregon got blown out in their game. I mean, that was an ugly game. A lot of shitty games.
Well, two of the teams that got buys didn't deserve to get the buys. That's just a shitty setup. Boise State and SMU
they can't figure this shit out. The college has so much work to do. I mean, they talked about bringing in a commissioner. I thought that was a great idea. They need somebody to create some guardrails or some, for this.
I know. That's the problem. It's very difficult because in college there's this tremendous difference in talent. From even schools like SMU and
absolutely.
Penn State or
even the best schools, John, like the top of the roster versus the bottom of the roster, the difference is massive.
Yeah. So you can't compare college to the NFL, and the NFL is so close. And even the worst team has a bunch of really good players. In college, you get these teams that play these crowd. Indiana's the best example, probably. Yeah, and I was laughing about it. I was watching that bowl game. Who beat Indiana? Jesus, I can't. Notre Dame beat Indiana pretty handily. They actually scored a couple garbage touchdowns at the end, but it was a blowout. And the coach of Indiana, I forget his name, but the coach of Indiana was National Coach of the Year. They're talking about it. He came from James Madison. And they're talking about during the broadcast like multiple times. Well, he looked at the schedule and he saw 10 wins. and it's like, because he knows he's playing bullshit teams. So I'm like, I'll go to Indiana. I'll go win 12 games. I'm National Coach of the Year.
Yeah, right.
I mean, most college teams, and Xander, you know this, Nick Saban, not the joke they have that replaced him, but
fuck that guy.
He could pick up a schedule every year and say, all right, I'm starting with 10 wins. That's not the NFL. So anybody who compares college to the NFL, you're way off base. I mean, there are no off weeks in the NFL. There's a little bit close to it when you're playing a bad team, and late in the season, the really bad teams tend to give up. But if you look early in the season, where guys are biting, and these games are so close and so competitive, completely different environment than college football. Completely different environment. Even the people that cover college football have no idea who's really good and who isn't. How could you? Like, is Ohio State really good? Maybe. Is Notre Dame really good? Maybe. You know, when they get up to whoever's going to win, there's only 4 teams. So these 4 are probably really good. But as you saw with, Oregon has the great season. They get blown out by Ohio State. Maybe Ohio State's really good.
Who do you think wins it all? 4 teams left. Notre Dame versus Penn State, Ohio State versus Texas.
Well, I can't stand the Penn State people, so I'm going Notre Dame.
You and me both. You and me both.
And Texas.
Where's Real Zeal? Is he in here? Oh my God, the Penn State talk from that guy.
Ohio State. My buddy Jeff Kerr is just I can't.
Oh, Jeff's up
I can't take the Penn State. It's really Jeff's fault. I shouldn't blame all the Penn State, but so Penn State people blame Jeff.
Penn Staters know it too. They're
Mosher too. All the Jeffs. Stop. Calm down with this Penn State nonsense.
Oh man.
But yeah. So I'm biased against Penn State. So I'll pick Notre Dame, and then I think Ohio State's better than Texas. So
I do too.
I'm going to go Notre Dame, Ohio State, and there I'll probably pick Ohio State.
Yeah, that's exactly how I had it, Johnny Mac. I'd like to see Notre Dame win, though. The Catholic in me wants to see Notre Dame win, but it should be a good finish.
I think they have a good team, but they're like the Lions. I think they have a legitimate they were really good. They lost so many players to injury. Like, it's amazing they keep going. They lost that. Their defense is one of the best in the country, and they just lost Howard Cross again. He's like an All-American. They lost their best pass rusher, and they keep winning. So, but at some point, I think it bites them in the you-know-what.
Yep. Jay Perfect checks in. Good stuff there. Appreciate the super chat. Jay Perfect checks in. He says, most people don't know the rushing record, John, because it's not a player of their team. For most Eagles fans, it will be fun bragging about it in the future. And John,
I agree with that. And I have no problem with people like Jay who understand the situation. Jay, my problem is with people that act like it's Babe Ruth's record.
Okay, that's fair.
That is my problem.
Can I also throw in one more thing though? I think like we are talking about sports here, John. Like, we're not talking about solving world peace or like a war. Like, we're talking about sports. Like, isn't there an element of sports that's supposed to be about some of those things? It's supposed to be about achieving records and making the fans feel good and all those things. Like, isn't that part of what it is? Like, we've gotten to this point where it's like, I don't know. I feel like we're acting like it's this great
it's
big
fine. It's fine. I think Jay said it perfectly.
It's week 18.
Fine.
Play the fucking guys. They're making millions of dollars. Play the fucking guys. Who cares?
It's fine. It's fine to brag about it. It's fine to want to brag about it. I have no problem. Spike the football, celebrate, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I have a problem with. I have a problem with the hypocrisy of certain others, not everybody, but of certain others who pretend it's more than it is, than what Jay just said it is, which I agree with him. Yeah, and I always say, look, I'm not covering the White House. I'm not covering politics. I'm not covering real world issues. It's fucking sports. That's why I don't. That's why I don't. My whole mood isn't based on whether the Eagles or any other team wins or loses. I don't give a shit. I have to do my job, whether they win, lose, draw, whatever. So it doesn't impact me in that way. But yeah, it should be. How many times have I said on this show, enjoy the journey?
Yes.
It ain't always like this. But I will also tell you, from the team's perspective, their goal is to win the Super Bowl. and it should be, and that's what you want. And I think a lot of people get lost in other shit that doesn't matter. So from the team's perspective, I'll defend the team because I think you're lost in shit that doesn't matter. That is how I would phrase it. Like, to them, it doesn't matter. To Jeffrey Lurie, it doesn't matter. You could say it should for business and marketing purposes. And if it happened organically, he would love it.
It was about to happen organically. What do you mean organic? Week 18, the starters are supposed to play in a normal circumstance. So technically, organically would be them playing in week 18.
Organically is being good enough to do what you want to do in week 18. If they had to win, they would have played their guys. Right, that's organically. If they had to win, if the game meant something, that's what I mean by organically. They don't have to win. They can't move up. They can't move down. They're locked in. They can't, that's, yeah. Or organically, in your definition of, well, they're professional athletes. There's 18 weeks. They should play all 18 weeks. Again, if I believed even for an inkling, Xander, they played in this game and lost. Doesn't have to be Saquon. Could be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I don't want to pick anybody out. Could be.
Just somebody. I get what you're saying.
They lose a meaningful player. You'd be back on this show ripping them to shreds. And so would everybody else. And by the way, I would have been ripping them to shreds before the game. I'm not taking them. I would have been ripping them to shreds if they were playing people in this game. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you. I said that to an Eagles executive yesterday. I said, I'll be honest with you. I would have ripped Nick to high heaven if he played starters in this game. That's my exact quote. I would have killed him.
Yeah, well, there's people killing them. There's people, people that want the other thing. So there's always going to be a break there where some people kill them, some people don't. I'd like to, I don't know. My point of it is just fucking play. Like, it's week 18. What are we afraid of here? If somebody goes down, okay, you left it all out on the field. That's part of what sports is.
That's it. Just happened last year, which is the crazy part.
But that was a meaningful game. They were trying to get a better seed in that game.
I know, and it fucked them. They had a very small.
I'm sorry, I don't like that comp at all. I don't think that comp is good at all. They were playing for something in that football game.
They had a very small chance, and they should. I didn't kill them for that because they should. And I said the same thing this year because I value consistency. If there was any opportunity to get the number 1 seed, I would have advocated them playing. And then you scoreboard watch because they would have put the games at the same time. They always do that. So you can't just not play and you can't just play. And then they would have scoreboard watched. And if it became clear that if Detroit was going to win the number 1, they would have started pulling guys, which is what they did last year. But it happened too late. And a bunch of guys got injured. And they got screwed. So to say to go out and do it again with nothing on the line, that would have been crazy.
Let's say.
And by the way, it's Nick's decision, but Nick is smart enough to know what the decision should be. And if it came down to it, he would have been overruled anyway.
It's fair. Let's keep rolling here. M. Halpin says, I am pumped to see TM, Tanner McKee. All right.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, a lot of people, will be pumped to see the younger players, and Tanner most notably. So there will be some excitement from that standpoint for at least some people. Like I said, Will Shipley, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Kaylee Ringo. It's a guy I haven't mentioned. He's going to get an opportunity to play corner for a long, period of time. A lot of guys, Will Shipley and et cetera. Monroe Jomo, we talked about a little bit. Let's see what these guys can do.
Looking forward to it. Josh Herman checks in. Appreciate all the super chats, by the way, everybody. Thanks for getting us close to our super chat goal for the day. We appreciate that support of the channel. A little football Friday here with a pretty shitty game on the horizon. See, that's what I hate. I mean, people paying money, John, to go to this game. They're going to fucking watch a bunch of scrubs.
Look at the NBA when Greg Popovich unleashed load management.
You're right. NFL is not the main culprit there, but I'm just saying,
I mean,
Josh Herman says, good.
You'd pay like hundreds of dollars to see Tim Duncan, and all of a sudden, we're going to rest Tim Duncan and Tony Parker.
And NBA sucks. Don't even get me started on that shit product. Josh Herman, $5. He says the only way Nick doesn't get flack for resting Saquon is by winning the Super Bowl, not just going. Kind of feel bad for him.
Wow, he was. Honestly, I mean, we've been talking about that since training camp, since this wasn't a thing. Nick's going to get shit no matter what, whenever they lose, whenever they bow out. So, I mean, that's just part of it. He knows it. Quarterback too, Jalen as well. That's just part of the job. And it was always Super Bowl or bust with this team long before anybody was talking about this record. They know it's Super Bowl or bust. It's always been Super Bowl or bust.
Did you see the little report that came out yesterday? I forget who it was, about Nick Sirianni. Like, either his job's in jeopardy if he's a one and done. I'm like, hello. No. We've been talking about that for a year.
Yeah. His job.
Who was it? I forget who reported that. Somebody was it Andrew Fowler?
Jeremy Fowler?
Jeremy Fowler.
I do not believe Jeremy would say that, but I don't know who did it. So
no, he reported it yesterday. Yeah, Nick Sirianni's job could be in jeopardy if they're a one and done in the playoffs.
I didn't see it.
Is that Jeffrey Lurie going through the cracks in the media? Like, put some pressure on Nick. Let him know we got big goals here.
Boy, I have to see it. I find it very hard to believe Jeremy said
Let me find the tweet real quick. I'll send it to you.
But if he said it, yeah. I mean, there's a small path. Like, if they get destroyed in the first round of the playoffs, I'm not going to say, and I'm talking 40-3 type destroyed, which ain't going to happen. And it's something embarrassing like that. You never know, because things become very emotional at that point. And you never have, you're talking about one individual and you're talking about his reaction to something like that. So you always keep the door open slightly ajar, but I find it very hard to believe that Jeremy Fowler said that.
He did. Yeah, he put it in his ESPN article.
Yeah, I disagree with him. Unless he said it, unless he phrased it like that.
His job could be in jeopardy if the Eagles lose in the first round of the playoffs, per Jeremy Fowler, ESPN. So he's not saying he's going to get fired. He's saying it could be in jeopardy. It's not really reporting anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what I said. Well, if he loses 40-3, yeah, technically, and then you can spike the football. But yeah, I that's very unlikely. Very unlikely.
Let's keep rolling here, John. We got a bunch of super chats coming in. Appreciate the great people of JAKIB Nation today for all the support.
Here we go.
Brian Pumper says Tanner Manning drops 344 and 4 tutties. Jalen better watch his back because it's Tanner time.
Yeah.
I don't think he's doing that with Jahan Dotson.
Yeah. It might be tough. Might be tough.
Eagle fans are still very protective of Jahan Dotson, by the way. I put up a tweet like a little bit ago. It's just like, man, I wish we still dominated the kids. And they just attacked me. They're like, oh my God, we don't throw to Jahan. You can't say that. I'm like, dude, who gives a fuck? The guy's done nothing. We sent a third-round pick for this guy. Why are you so adamant on protecting him? He stinks. We had no AJ for 3 games. We had no Devontae for multiple games. The guy has done nothing in Philly. Nothing. He stinks, John.
Well, I don't know if he stinks, but
he stinks here in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about the third for whatever reason they can't get the third receiver involved. Yeah, I don't know why, but I mean, you're talking about. I don't think he stinks. I think, he caught I don't know how many he caught like 50 balls in Washington. I mean, why? That's a bad team at the time. It's not. Remember, that's not Washington now.
Yeah.
And he caught 50 balls. Why can't he do any? I blame that more on the team. I do. And they just don't. And it's been multiple bodies, and you see it the other way with Olamide Zaccheaus going to Washington this year, and he's making plays. He's not great, but he's making plays, and gets an opportunity, and he makes plays here
Lamade
and
made
there.
some plays for the Eagles too. He had a big. I remember the big.
He had the
touchdown.
one touchdown,
Yeah.
but I mean, overall, they didn't get him involved. They didn't get Julio involved. They didn't get Quez involved. And people go back to when Quez was the wide receiver 2. They had to get him involved, but when he was
but
a
I'm
wide
analyzing it from an Eagles perspective, not just solely that Jahan. I think Jahan.
well, I think you should look more at the
I'm
offense.
analyzing the whole move though. They sent a third for a wide receiver 3, and he does nothing. So the whole move of sending it, trading for him, replacing Olamide with him, whatever you did to get to this point, it was a shitty move. It was a shitty freaking move.
Well, then
It doesn't matter. It's inconsequential because we have 2 better players.
Blame Howie. You know what are the other Howie has a different job than Nick and Kellen and everybody. He's trying to get the team better. In theory, on paper, it made some sense. And let's be honest, I didn't want to go down this route, but it's late, so that'll limit the people killing me. Let's be honest, it's the fucking quarterback. He doesn't get people involved.
Yeah, he doesn't.
It's not Kellen, it's not Nick, it's not Shane Steichen, it's not anybody else you want to blame. He doesn't get other people involved. And a fucking Tanner Manning McKee, as Brian Pumper said, or Kenny Pickett, you'd see more, the ball. I'm not saying they'd be as effective, but you'd see more movement around to other guys. So if you want to blame Howie, blame Howie. This is an NFL receiver, never lived up to his, billing as a first round pick. He got overdrafted. He got overdrafted at the time. People were wondering, you're taking this guy 16 or whatever he was.
Yeah.
He got a little bit overdrafted, but he was going to be a first round pick, late first round pick. He's got some talent. So I'm not going to sit here and say he stinks. They don't get third receivers involved. That's why you want Dallas Goedert back on the field. If you want my honest opinion, it takes a long time to earn Jalen Hurts' trust. And 3 guys got it. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert.
I don't think that's part of his problem. Just let the thing fly, dude. If the guy's open, if the coverage is right, if the defense is in the right, if you get the right read, fucking throw the ball. I don't give a shit who it is.
Well,
throw
I
the
agree.
damn ball.
That's what you want, but that's not what you have. So I'm dealing with what you have, not what you want.
I hear you. Anthony Wilson checks in. Thank you, Anthony, for the $10, brother. He said, I said that yesterday to Sills, John. He said he's doing all that talking, but if Lane, Saquon, Jordan, AJ, or anybody got hurt trying to get that record, he would clown Nick all offseason.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, everybody would. I mean, everybody would. Everybody's saying that today. Everybody would.
Cilia will clown somebody for a lot of things. I've never heard him clown anybody over an injury or anything.
I'm not blaming Cilia. I'm blaming.
No, I know you're not. I'm telling Anthony what
I'm saying. Everybody who says you should go for the record, if they suffered a significant injury, it doesn't even have to be injuries plural. A significant injury to a major contributor that contributed to them losing in the playoffs, Nick Sirianni would get a ton of shit. That's not controversial at all. That's reality. That's just the way it works. But one thing I've learned about hypocrites is they don't care that they're hypocrites. So it doesn't matter pointing it out.
That's true.
I say it all the time.
Dank Bird Gang checks in. He says, if number of games don't matter, he can break it in round 1. Well, no, regular season's over, Dank. Abe says, got a feeling some starters didn't want to play and some did. Landon and my lot and made the decision, hence what Lane said to media and what the mic'd up video showed. Yeah, it did show the offensive lineman on the sideline. Certainly seemed like Landon and my lot wanted to go and get it.
Yeah, I think everybody wanted it. And they're football players. They want to play.
Lane was toting the company line though, Johnny Mac, this week.
I don't know if Lane wanted to play, but the disconnect of there's no, people are overstating the that human beings can have different opinions because that's where we are in society. You either agree with my opinion or you're a piece of shit is the way most of society is right now. In this case, it's like there's a bunch of guys who get along, and Lane's probably got a little bit more experience and understands it a little bit more than Landon, who would run through a brick wall at any point. You might, you don't even have to have a record, and Landon's going to say, yeah, let's go out and play. And meanwhile, he's been fighting through leg stuff. Sometimes you got to save people from themselves. Talk about a tough guy. That's Landon Dickerson. Now, he could be feeling like shit. He's still going to go out there and play. Sometimes
I love Landon Dickerson.
Sometimes you got to save guys from themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Jeff Bone says, the Bonehead says, it takes almost 3 to 6 months for a fractured forearm to heal. Goedert came back in 4 weeks to compete. That ain't human.
He's made of glass, I'm told. Yeah, he's not a tough guy. Speaking of tough,
Bonehead's with you. He likes Goedert. Josh Herman checks in. Xander, if you had an employee who couldn't perform because he was sick all the time, you'd fire him. Time to move on from Dallas. Well, I don't have that. I got two guys who show up even when he got a cold, even when he's sick. Yeah. Johnny Mac's here to deliver a football Friday for Birds 365.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's kind of the mentality I'm talking about, comparing a sprained knee to a cold. You sprain your knee, you sprain your knee. You can say, hey, play through it. We're not going to want to see that, my friend. Sprain your knee, you sprain your knee. Anybody who sprained their knee, I unfortunately have been in that category.
Yeah.
You ain't playing professional football through a sprained knee. But,
F Body Guy says, if J-Mac isn't an Eagles fan, who is his team? This question comes up often, John.
Yeah.
I love asking.
I don't know why it's hard for people to understand. I don't root for anybody. I root for people. Like there's a bunch of guys on the Eagles I like, and I root to have good things to happen to them because you cover people.
And they're good people, and you build a relationship with them, and that's how life works.
Yeah,
I get that.
So I root for people, but I don't root for teams. I mean, what if you're in this industry, and I've been doing this for too long, there's a lot of people, I say this all the time. There's a lot of people that think they want to cover the Eagles in sports and have asked for, how do you do it? How do you get into it? You got to go, journalism in college, but, and I always say, don't, for two reasons. You got to learn to do the job the right way. So don't cover a team you like, number one. Right. And B, you shouldn't even want to, because if you cover a team you like, you're not going to like that team afterwards because you're going to see a bunch of shit. So yeah, that's my advice. But as far as which team I root for in the NFL, no team. People like to think they have me figured out, but I always tell you I have a file in my email of hate mail. I always keep my hate mail because
and you've been accused of 31 teams, right?
Yeah.
Who's the last one?
I think it's not 31. It's 28 or 29. It's very high.
We're close. We're close.
Yeah, very close. So, the most is the NFC North teams because I covered the NFC North. So it's hilarious because Vikings fans are convinced I love the Packers.
See, fans, Abe says it's the Vikings for J-Mac. He's making claims.
See, Vikings fans. Now that stems from I was a big Fran Tarkenton fan when I was young, so that's what that stems from. But I covered the NFC, so Packers fans are convinced I love the Vikings, and Vikings fans are convinced I love the Packers. Now people are convinced I love the Lions because the Lions are so good, and I always talk about how good the Lions are. Now everybody knows I don't like the Bears because I shit on the Bears, but I shit on the Bears because it's just an abomination.
Bad
of an
organization. Objectively, yeah, it's a bad organization.
So, but the NFC North is hilarious because I have so many emails that from Packers fans that think I like the Vikings and from Vikings fans that think I love the Packers. Because when Brett Favre was playing, I was covering the Vikings when Brett Favre was playing for the Packers. And I just had unbelievable. I mean, Brett Favre was fucking awesome.
Yeah, he was.
And Vikings fans would lose their mind. Yeah. So I think it's hilarious.
Good stuff there. Appreciate the question. JH says Saquon's career arc is starting to resemble Priest Holmes, average running back until he got to KC, and then he had 3 amazing years. And JH, you stripped him of an opportunity to. I think if he won the rushing record, he would have been an instant first ballot Hall of Famer. Without it, I think it's going to be a different conversation. It might be a second ballot, might be a third ballot. We'll see.
Well, I think he's a Hall of Fame player. So,
Hall of Fame player. He doesn't have a Hall of Fame resume right now. Not even close, John. He's got like 7,000 career rushing yards. He's very
no. You got to do it. You got to reach certain benchmarks. But you know, so much of his reputation is a lot of it is involved with that. Not always, but players have so much respect for him. He's in that category. I always say that when NFL players are in awe of you, you're on a different level. They're in awe of Saquon, Randy Moss, Michael Vick, who isn't a Hall of Famer for different reasons. But players like that, Aaron Donald is one of those. They are just, when your peers are in awe of you, carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that. Tyler Braswell, text him $5. Go Birds! Thank you, brother, for contributing to the super chat goal with the Go Birds. I appreciate that very much. Brian Pumper says it's been Jalen Hurts. He plays like he has a permanent eye occluder from the optometrist installed. He can't see, can't read, and can't throw. Holy shit, Pumper!
Totally. Brian Pumper. Yeah,
Pumper. That's too far. He said, Dirty D says 95% of NFL fans wouldn't play the game if they stubbed their big toe.
Oh, yeah. That's 100%. Yeah. Maybe higher. You might be lowballing that number.
Yeah, it might be. Mesmerized checks in. He says, enough record talk. Let's have some fun. How do you two see the playoffs playing out, given the assumption of seeding at this point?
Yeah, I don't like the way. I'd rather play Washington if I'm the Eagles than Green Bay, but I think they beat either team. So
me too. I think they win. I think we win round 1.
But Green Bay is more dangerous, no question.
If I was a betting man, John, which I am not, I do not sports bet. I never sports bet at all. But if you sports bet, go to betus.com.pa. I would bet on the Chiefs. Eagles fans.
I'm still on. I picked Detroit before the season. I'm still on Detroit. I think they're the best team. I think their offense is so good. I mean, they're going to give up some points, but I don't think anybody's going to slow them down.
Yeah, we'll see. Brian Pumper says, let's be real. Jalen Hurts made the decision for Saquon not to play during the Commandos game. His inability to slide cooked Barkley's chances.
Now we're blaming Jalen. By the way, Jalen's a big part of why Saquon is at the position he is.
Yeah, but last week didn't help that. I'll tell you.
I'll say this, because a lot of people criticize me for criticizing Jalen because they want to protect Jalen at all costs, and Jalen doesn't need protection. He's very, thick-skinned, and Jalen doesn't have a problem with me, and vice versa. He doesn't get the credit he deserves for the player he is because he's a unique player, and I say it all the time, but nobody hears that. And they want a certain style of quarterback. And he's not that certain style. Once you accept that, you can realize this guy's pretty freaking good. It just, Like Saquon Barkley, one of the things, and it was Josina, I'll say it. It was Josina Anderson, said Saquon Barkley's earned the rights to go after this record. He didn't earn shit. He earned the right along with Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens and Mekhi Becton. As long as you frame it in that direction. Saquon's not doing. You saw Saquon in New York for 6 years. He's not doing it without those guys. Now, that doesn't mean you've seen the Eagles as well with good running backs, but not great running backs. Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift. And Saquon has taken them to another level as well. So I'm not trying to dismiss Saquon's part in it as well. But everybody is dismissing Jalen Hurts in that offensive line. And I guarantee you right now, when I do my regular season award column, I'll tell you right now, MVP of the Philadelphia Eagles is not Saquon Barkley.
Offensive line.
Offensive line.
I agree. 2 more chats we got to here. Chris Scott says, we lost AJ and Blankenship in week 18 last year. Howie probably said, not again. Everyone's sitting. Good. So we decided to play scared, Chris. We'll see how it works. We'll see how it goes, Chris. Josh Herman says, if Mahomes isn't in the MVP discussion with 15 wins, then Burrow's record shouldn't matter. That dude is playing some effing football, Josh.
Well, it's one of those things where, there becomes a tire, and now that I have a vote for MVP, I got to pick a top 5, and I haven't done it yet, but I know I'm not picking Patrick Mahomes, and part of it is, at some point there becomes, and LeBron James was like this when I was voting for NBA MVP. It's like, all right, well, he could be the MVP every fucking year. And it gets boring, and maybe should be MVP in a prime of his career every year. And maybe it should be Patrick Mahomes every year, but it's not how it works. And who's having the best season?
Far with it, though. I think a player that good deserves to get some of those accolades. I don't care if you're freaking biased against it or you don't want, or it's boring. I don't care. It's the point.
Well, I mean, it is about, the individual year, and he hasn't had his best year.
But it's like Andy Reid. Andy Reid's never won Coach of the Year with the Chiefs. That's insane.
Never.
Insane, John.
He never even in the conversation because he's expected to win.
I mean, we got guys like Brian Dable who have tell the story of the NFL properly.
Kevin
Stefanski.
Kevin Stefanski. Well, you have to understand each award. You have to and that's why I try to explain to people.
And Saquon's bullshit.
Saquon's not going to be MVP. It's a quarterback award. Coach of the Year is for guys who overachieve, not guys with consistent success. It just is what it is. And that's why I don't get upset by it. And I say it's not that big of a deal. These are the reasons I say this stuff. You have to understand what it is. And what it isn't is best Philadelphia Eagle for any of these awards. So you also have to understand it's a league-wide thing. But yeah, Coach of the Year is for the guy who overachieves. It's going to be Kevin O'Connell this year.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
I think is actually a good pick this year. I think
Minnesota, but and I'm going to vote for Kevin O'Connell. But if you want to be honest, you're right. It should be Andy Reid. But he's not even in the conversation because he's expected to do it.
Yeah, it's bullshit. Abe says any records Barkley can break in the playoffs.
Yeah, Terrell Davis's all-time NFL rushing record that nobody knows about.
Edward L checks in. He says, love the show. So is Andy Reid an idiot scared by not playing starters this week? Mahomes and Travis are going.
You have to ask Xander. I'm not calling him idiot. He called. I don't call the Eagles scared. I think they're doing a common sense thing.
The Chiefs are not in the same position as the Eagles. And if you're going to convince yourself that they are, Edward L., then that's your problem. They are not in the same position. Remember, the same people who said this about Andy Reid were mad that he played Patrick Mahomes in the preseason. So it's not a black and white conversation at all.
No.
The Eagles' philosophy is to rest players. People like the Lions, people like Andy, that's not their philosophy. The Chiefs have accomplished everything this year, and now they're taking
the Eagles' philosophy is when there's nothing to play for to rest players. They're locked in. That's why the Chiefs are they're locked in. The Eagles are locked into the 2 seed. They can't go up, they can't go down. Last year they weren't locked in, and they played. Their philosophy is not resting players. Their philosophy is resting players if we're locked in, which I agree with. And I would kill them if they didn't rest players before and after, whether it worked out or not, because I don't think it's a good way to do it. If there's something to play for, you play. To me, it's pretty simple. There's nothing to play for.
How about the NFL rushing record, right, John?
Let me reemphasize. If there's something team oriented to play for, you play. If there's something not team oriented, then no. You don't play.
I've heard it. I've heard it enough. All right, everybody. We're way over time now. John, what's your prediction for this damn game that was so hard to talk about?
I think the Giants will win the game. Eagles aren't going to play anybody.
I'm going Eagles. I'm going Tanner Brady, baby. Come on, Birds.
It's not subterfuge. They're not going to play any meaningful key contributors. Some guys will have to play, obviously, as I mentioned. But I don't know, 23-17 Giants.
Wow. 23-17. Johnny Mac's picking the Giants. I'm picking the Birds. I'm picking the Tanner attack. I'm picking Jahan Dotson to prove me wrong.
You just said he's stuck.
I know. That's why I say he's going to prove me wrong. He's going to get out there and Tanner McBrady's going to make him look like a freaking stud.
I hope that happens, actually, because I want to see the overhype on Tanner McKay if he plays well.
Sick. That would be awesome.
I want to see it. I
want to see it. Stuff to talk about on the post-game show. I'd love to do that. So let's see what happens this weekend. I'm going to pick 27-17, baby. 27-17. Give me the Birds winning this game over and going to 14-3 on the year. It'll be a hell of a season, John. It'll be a hell of a season. You're underestimating how much Nick cares about that winning percentage that everybody's been tooting about him, John. He knows it's there. He doesn't want to lose this game.
Yeah, well, they're going to try to win, but yeah, I don't think they're going to play enough players to win, but they're going to try to win.
We'll see. We will see what they do. Good stuff, everybody. Appreciate everybody in the chat, by the way, for all the super chats today, all the likes, all the support. You guys are tremendous. Yeah, even when you don't agree or you get mad at us, we still love you and you still support us. So I can't thank you guys enough. That's what football talk is, though, John, isn't it? What do you want us to come up here and have?
Well, the best thing you said every day. The best thing you said today is we ain't. You didn't say it this way, but I'll say that we ain't curing cancer. You know, it's not meaningful at in the big scale of life. It is football. But yeah, and I always say enjoy the journey. You don't always have a 13-14 win team. And they got a chance, and that's all you want. You want to go in the playoffs with a chance, and they're going to be in the playoffs with a chance. And that's a successful season.
We will see how it plays out. Johnny Mac, great show, brother. We will talk to you on the much anticipated pregame show for Week 18's Tanner McKee backup bowl versus the New York versus the putrid.
Might even get to see some Ian Book.
The horrifying
Notre Dame. That might be a signal that Notre Dame goes all the way. Ian Book is back.
Oh, right. He was a little. Yeah, that's right. He was
the all-time winningest quarterback at Notre Dame.
Is he? Is that right?
That is correct.
Wow, good little tidbit of info on the way out the door for Ian Book. We'll see if he gets out there. John, good show, brother. Be safe today on your travels down to NovaCare. Anything worth telling the people before we go that's happening today at NovaCare?
Nope. Necessary evil. They're going to practice today. Nick talks before practice. I'm sure there'll be some more.
They'll probably get a couple people to talk to you guys to tote the company line a couple more times. Make sure everybody's not too mad at the Eagles. You know how they got to control the narrative.
Yeah, you gotta beat the dead horse. Maybe we'll get some info on why they're handling Jalen Hurts, why they're handling Jalen Hurts. But
I'm gonna bet you don't get that info.
Well,
maybe you will off the record, but not on the record.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right, Johnny Mac. Good show, brother. Thank you all for being here today. Hit that like button on your way out. John, great stuff, man. Talk to you on Sunday for the pregame show.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.